Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is it really true? Is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass. Because, guys, 34 years ago, I was a dumbass. But today, 34 years later, through the grace of God, I can honestly say now I'm a smartass. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey. And that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this. There are a lot of people out there struggling, even with their health. And I want everyone to know that I'm a recovery coach. I'm a nutritional health coach. All my services to you are free. Please, please reach out. I want you all to know someone is listening. If you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing, BAM, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And guess what? You can now go to my website, www.geripetito.com, if you want my book on audio with my voice. So Simon & Schuster wanted to put my book to audio with someone else's voice, and I was like, absolutely not. So my producer, Ruben Rodriguez, part owner of Hamilton Radio and owner of Iron Horse Films, is now doing audiobooks with your voice. So if any authors out there are interested, reach out to me. Having said that, I want to introduce my really cool guest. He's been on the Geri Petito Show before. The first time we spoke about his first book. All right, I'm not going to tell you the title yet. And now we're going to be talking about his first book and his second book that's going to be coming. So I'm going to have him tell you all about that. I am so excited. So Rick Saphire, say hello.
Hello. By the way, this is really it's going to be my third book because my first book was titled Albert Einstein, The Dumb Years, but nobody bought it. And so
Wait, hold on. You can't just do that to me. I don't know if I knew that or even remember talking about that.
Well, you probably don't remember it because I just made it up.
Oh, duh. All right. Continue.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm producing a movie also, Titanic, the musical. So there's a lot ahead in my future.
Oh my gosh.
What I really wish is that I had a theme song like yours so that I could show my book and dance with it, but I can't do that. The book that's out right now.
I know a guy, but go ahead.
My book is The Real Geri Lewis Story. And for those of you who didn't see us chatting before, and for those of you who I've watching now that I've never met, I have often been asked, well, where do I come off to write a book about the real Geri Lewis story? Geri Lewis wrote his own book about him and Dean Martin, and then there was another book. Anyway, I was Geri Lewis's protege. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, I performed on network TV with him. So young, how could I actually have done that? But it's true. And in the 2000s, I was Geri Lewis's personal manager. I never liked even using the title personal manager because as much as I love Geri, he was unmanageable. And so I like to use theatrical representative, which is really a lot more. Nowadays, managers don't have the same function that they did back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. If you had a personal manager, that meant more than it means today. But I was Geri's personal representative and good friend most of the time. the difference between me and other people who represented Jerry, they gave up their life and careers and went strictly and solely with Jerry. I never did that because, thank goodness, I have represented many people in my career. My first client, I always represented my heroes, and my first client was a guy named George McFarland, and people will know him better by his nickname Spanky
Oh,
McFarland.
yes, yes.
Spanky was actually the star of the Little Rascals in
Yeah.
the Our Gang comedies. And back around 1969, Spanky was retired. He was working in the corporate world. And I said, listen, I produce college shows. And right now there is a big nostalgia thing going on. The kids who were in college in 1969, 1970 grew up watching the Little Rascals on television, not in the movie theater, but on TV. And everything was a protest back in those days.
Like
You
today,
know,
but go ahead.
well, yeah, but it's a different kind of a protest today. You know, the Vietnam War, the teenagers were protesting because they were afraid of being drafted into a war that they really didn't understand. And so they had a good reason to be scared and to be concerned and to be protesting.
Yeah.
But in any event, uh, I told Spanky about these college shows I produce, and I said I'd like to do an evening of nostalgia with Spanky McFarlane. And I laid out the whole thing for him. And then Spanky said to me, Rick, you sound like you know what you're talking about. It sounds great. We shook hands. He said, I'm in. So I said goodbye to Spanky, and then for the next 3 days, I had to figure out what I was going to do because I had never produced any college shows before. It was an idea, but it turned out to be real, and we did about 10 years traveling about. But through the years, I've represented a lot of wonderful people, and that will take me to something that you alluded to, Jerry. That will take me to the next book that will be out and available later this year. And the title will be I Thank My Lucky Stars. And the
I
book,
love that. Go ahead.
well, thank you.
I love the
book,
title.
the book will be filled with a plethora, I finally got to use that word, with a plethora of celebrities, comedians, singers, wonderful entertainers that I knew, that I was friends with. Many of them I represented. Some of them we were just buddies. And great, great stories, and it'll be sort of a coffee table style book. And that's what's coming up in the future. I did that all in one breath. Your turn.
So, okay, so I love that title. Okay? So, of course, I'm going to ask you this question. So, Elvis is not mentioned in the book, but people he was involved with were, correct?
Oh, sure.
Tell us.
Well, one that comes to mind is Stella Stevens. Elvis, and I'll be very honest with you, I don't remember all of the movies that these young ladies were
Yeah,
in.
that's okay.
I know that Cynthia Pepper, who has been a friend and a client for many, many years, she was in Kissin' Cousins with Elvis, and she's the one that gave him the judo flip. She was his twin. She was dating in the movie his twin cousin. And then, of course, there's the young lady who was Elvis's true love interest in real life. She was on the Elvis 1968 comeback special. And so there are any number of the young ladies who appeared with Elvis in films, but I never did get to meet him.
Okay. Oh, me neither. I still
Well,
have my Elvis ticket. I was 16 when he died. My mom said I could finally go with my aunt, who met him, kissed him, and got a scar from him in Vegas many moons ago.
uh-huh.
And the ticket is hanging on my wall, framed in my Elvis poker room. I had a poker table made.
Well, very nice.
Yeah, I'm a
Very
poker
nice.
dealer. I don't really do it for a living, but so yeah, so I never
Well,
got
I
to
know,
meet
I
him.
know you don't want me to say this, but who knows? Maybe it's a good thing you didn't get to meet him, because just like with Jerry Lewis, people through my whole life, really, people have come to me with horror stories. They finally got to meet their hero, and he was in a bad mood. He
Nope.
was,
It wouldn't have happened, baby. It wouldn't have happened.
Oh, okay. He would have loved you instantly.
I would have probably loved to have had his child back then.
Well, fortunately, nobody's listening to you right
Listen,
now.
listen.
So you're not gonna-
I said it very clean. I said it very clean. Okay. All right. So let's get back now. All right. I want to ask you some Jerry Lewis questions.
You got it. Anything
right.
you want.
I
If I
know
don't
you're.
know the answer, I'll make it up. 'Cause
All right.
who's
So
gonna-
listen. I know you're an open book.
I
All
am.
right. So I had gone to a cooking natural health school in the Village in New York probably 15 years ago now. I'm a vegan chef. It was a vegan school with health and all that stuff attached to it for some more certifications. And one of the so-called owners of the school was Jenny Mathau, Walter's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So she told me a lot of stories about her father, and they weren't all great. So I know you also, and she told, they were friends, her father and Jerry Lewis, at times, I'm sure. But you know a lot of stuff that really went on back then. And I've heard nothing but, I'm going to use the word bad, things, any more about Jerry Lewis, even about the marathons. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. If you don't know the answer, you can just say that, or if you don't want to answer it. But
Yeah.
supposedly he kept a lot of that money that we thought was all going to the kids. Is that true?
Absolutely false.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that, and I know you know.
Jerry never came in contact with any of that money.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when you would go on the telethon and present Jerry with a check, the check wasn't even a real check. It was a dummy check. It was a television check.
Okay.
Because what you would do is, if you were, let's say you had $15,000 and you had collected it, the firefighters, whatever, and you were coming on the program to hand him a check, what had to happen was that money had to be given to the Muscular Dystrophy Association in advance, and they would make up a dummy check
Gotcha.
for you to go on television and hand to Jerry. It was all legitimate, but Jerry never came in contact.
I'm so glad I asked you that publicly so people could hear that answer. Great.
Although I did see him going into a couple of 7-Elevens, taking the change out of the little canisters and putting it in his pocket. But that didn't count. And that's
Okay.
a joke. That's a joke.
Yes.
So I want you to know that. Okay.
So, as a person, I also heard he wasn't the greatest family man. Is that true?
Absolutely true.
Okay.
You see, you're getting very concise answers here today.
Yes.
It's very interesting because people will ask me questions like, well, how come so many entertainers turn to drugs? So many entertainers are not good parents, and they cheat on their wives, and they cheat on this, and then I say to them in return, how many truck drivers do you know? Well, I don't know any. I said, well, how many truck drivers turn to drugs and cheat on their wives and do things? We think about the entertainers as being specifically bad when they do things that people in all walks of life do, except it's kind of magnified because we get to believe that the people who we admire and idolize on the screen, that's who they really are. And you've got to remember, if you love your hero, you've got to love them for their work. Because if you try to love them for who they really are, you're going to be very let down because we're people. And, except for myself, I'm the exemplary person. No, really, people are people, and they're going to let you down.
But wait, okay, so I think I can. All right. I'm going to speak for a lot of people because I've had this conversation with so many people over the years.
Okay.
All right. About entertainers and all that. And I think it's because, I'll give you an example. Jerry Lewis, right? I mean, he made a lot of money. Okay, we think.
Well, he made a lot. He made a lot less than people think, but that's all
right.
in my.
Right. So he made a lot less than we think, but we think he made a lot of money.
He made money.
And a lot of them who we know have made a lot of money kind of cut their children out of their wills. And that's what's hurting me as a parent.
Hmm.
Okay? You know, they had the money. Why would they do something like that?
Gary Lewis, Jerry's eldest son, who
Yes.
is still a superstar. You can hear Gary Lewis's music on some of the
Yep,
finest elevators in New York City now, if you go up and down. Gary Lewis and the
that's
Playboys
right.
was they still hold a record of their first 7 releases going to the top 10, including this Diamond Ring, which knocked the Beatles out of first place and went up to. All right. Gary, after reading the newspapers about the money and the will, and Gary said to me, he said, Rick, he said, Gary said, and I represent Gary, and he said, you know me, Rick. He said, I'm not waiting around now in my 70s to see if my father is going to leave me any money. He said, you make your own life. He said, but the newspaper said that when Jerry died, he was worth $50 million. Yet he left none of it to his children or their heirs.
Okay.
And Gary's comment to me, which I think I already knew, but Gary's comment to me was, Rick, if my dad was worth $50 million, it was in debt.
Okay.
And I truly believe that.
Okay.
That's the point. We want to believe
Yes.
that our stars are the. I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
The New York, what was it? The New York Times had written decades and decades ago that Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were the highest paid act in show business, and they were the richest performer in the entertainment business. And when they played the Copacabana in New York every year, they did 2 weeks at the Copa. When they played, or even more than 2 weeks, but when they played the Copa, they were getting a salary bigger than anybody, and they made it seem like Martin and Lewis were the biggest acts. It's in my book. I have their contract, which they signed in May of 1951, when they were now at the top of their career, to come back to appear again the following year, 1952, at the Copa for 1 month. And the contract reads, number one, it was 4 consecutive weeks, no night off, 7 nights a week, 3 shows a night, the last show ending usually about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
It was a treadmill that they were on. Okay, but they worked hard and they were young and they could do it, and they were getting tremendous audience reaction. They were paid. They were paid the total contract. You take the total contract, you divide it by how many shows they did. That's 4 weeks, 3 shows a night, 7 nights a week. Divide it up. Then you split the money between Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Before they paid commissions and before they paid for the extra musicians that they put into the Copacabana Orchestra, per show, the biggest act in the world in show business was making $134 a show. That was, in those days, the price of an average real good magician.
Wow.
It was all hype. Much of it was all hype.
Yes.
Now, in the movie industry, they did make a lot of money in the movies, but the money didn't all go to them. There was so much management, and there was so many things. And then Jerry started, producing and directing his own films after a while, and that's a whole other story. But yeah, what we hear about the people who we admire and
Yeah.
who we love, you gotta keep saying to yourself, it's show business.
Right.
It's what it is.
I've interviewed so many legends, Rick. I mean, Mel Carter, Larry Chance, all of the mystics before one passed away. I got that beautiful interview with all of them, Al Contrara. And he wrote a book, Al Contrara, The Mystics, the Mob, and blah, blah, blah. And he opened my eyes years ago because I wouldn't know, and even Larry Chance, all the conversations we had about it all. Like, as a fan, we just think, oh my gosh, they're so famous and made so much money. But it's really not true.
No, no.
Yeah, you're right.
And there are so many expenses that they had to be paid. And there are so many agents
Yeah.
and managers that rip these people off because they never get to see the money. They never get to see, Gary, and I'm using Gary as an example here
Right.
because we're essentially talking about Jerry
Right.
Lewis. Um, Gary was offered an appearance for so much money, thousands of dollars, to appear in person for Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Okay.
And he knew exactly how much the agent was paying him for the job. And I said, well, Gary, before you accept this from this agent, you want to find out not how much the agent is paying you to do the job. You want to find out how much the venue
That's right.
is paying the agent for your services. And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
An example with me. Now, I spent a whole career as a nightclub comedian working the Catskills. You'll never hear me calling it the Borscht Belt, the Catskill Mountains. And so I know the ropes. And then I started representing other people while I was, working all the hotels and not just the Catskills, but all around as a comedian. All right. So I, just like many other performers have other businesses, Paul Newman sold salad dressing. My love in my childhood was magic. I opened up a magic shop. Originally, I opened a magic shop in Pennsylvania because my wife was pregnant with Elvis's child. By the way,
There
just
you
kidding.
go.
My wife was pregnant, and I didn't want to be on the road for at least a couple of years, to be with the baby. And, maybe when the baby started into nursery school, I could go back on the road. So Sheila said to me, Rick, pick something that you like to do. I said, oh, when I was a kid, I always wanted to own a magic shop. And I figured, okay, 2 or 3 years, I'll have my own little magic shop. It'll be wonderful. It'll keep me home. 42 years later, during COVID, when the magic shop finally went out of business, I had that business, and I didn't always run it myself. I had people, but we were in every major mall in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey. It was great, and I loved
Wait,
doing.
what malls in New Jersey? Were you in Quaker Bridge Mall?
No, we weren't in
Oh.
Quaker Bridge. We were in the Echelon Mall. We were in the Cherry Hill Mall. We were
Oh.
in the Morristown Mall. We were at Franklin Mills for a year.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we were all over. And
What was it
then
called?
the Magic Shop.
Okay.
I figured, what's a good name for a magic shop? If I want people to, I could have called it the Houdini Emporium. Who the hell's going to remember that? Everybody's going to say, let's go to the magic shop.
Yes.
Oh. My wife and I used to walk through the mall, and we had a little game. I would look down at the ground as we're walking, and she would read to me the names of some of the new stores that opened up in the mall. Like I remember one called the Copper Rivet, and Sheila said the name, and I had to guess what they sold. And the Copper Rivet, I said, I don't know, pots and pans for the kitchen. No, they sold jeans.
Oh,
Because
okay.
jeans had copper rivets in them.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's a trend nowadays. Stores, the names of stores have nothing to do with what they sell. So anyway, I'm
I
not gonna
love
tell-
that though, the magic shop.
Yeah, and it was a great business. And I loved the business. I don't know how. Oh yes, so here's where I was going with my story. So I got a call from an agent who booked me for a lot of comedy dates, and his name was Mo Shames. He was a little Jewish guy, looked like, and I'm also a Jewish guy, not that little, so I can talk. And Mo Shames was the typical New York old-fashioned agent, even though he was from Philadelphia. He called me baby. Hey, Rick, baby, I got a job for you, baby. All right. So I don't have to mention his name anymore, but he did say to me, he said, Rick, baby, you got to do me a favor. I said, what do you need, Mo? He said, I got this big Christmas show coming up, and I had a magician going in there. There's going to be like 750 kids. And the magician, he's got sick and he can't do it. And it's in 2 days. Can you do it? I said, magic? I said, Mo, I haven't done a magic show outside of what I might do in my store. I had a little theater in my store. I said, I don't do that. I do comedy. He said, no, baby, tell me what. He said, listen, what do I need? I said, okay, my daughter is 7 years old, however old she was. I said, she has a little magic act. If she could also perform there, I'll do it. He said, listen, I got to tell you one other thing. All I got's $150 for you. I said, Mo, you're killing me. I said, all right, I want the 150. I'll do a great show for you. So I did the show. When the show was over, the manager of whatever this place was that hired me gave me the envelope. Now, the envelope usually goes to the agent with the money.
Oh, boy.
They handed me the envelope, and there was a check in the envelope. And I said, thank you. My wife was with me, so she was witness to all this. They walked away, and Sheila said, come on, let's look at the check. I said, okay, $150. Big deal. I didn't do it for the money. I did it to help out Mo.
Uh-huh.
I opened up the envelope.
Uh-huh.
Rick Saphire, entertainment, $950.
And it was made out to you.
It was made out to him. They did it by mistake. It was
Right.
supposed to be made out to him.
Yeah.
And the check was supposed to be sent to him.
Yeah.
They screwed up. So the next morning, I called Mo. I said, hey, Mo, it's Rick Saphire. He says, hey, baby, how did it go? You know, the thing is, if the show was lousy, the agent would know that night. But if the agent didn't hear anything that night, you know it was a good show, and they'll talk to you during the week. I said, oh, it was great. We had a lot of fun. My daughter did her little act. Everybody had a good time. Ah, baby, I knew you. Thanks a lot. I said, by the way, Mo, I guess they made a mistake. They gave me the envelope. And he got very quiet.
Uh-huh.
I could hear him breathing. And he said, okay, Rick, listen, just send me what you think is appropriate.
I hope you sent him 150.
Oh no, I sent him 10% of 150. I sent him $15, and that was it. That was it. I kept up my part of the bargain, and I never heard from him again, and I didn't really care.
Right, obviously.
But anyway, and that's a true story, and it happened to me.
Yep.
But that's the kinds of things that happen in the entertainment business. And there was a story back in the day. There was a young singer who's, oh God, don't let me forget his name. He sang the song "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus."
Okay.
And right now, 75 people who are watching this program are now saying it out loud.
I'm singing it in my head. Go ahead.
Yeah. I saw mommy kissing. Oh boy, what a bad impression. But anyway, and the song became a super, super hit. And Mo Shames, no, not Mo, listen to me. And then Mo Shames, the other guy. Abby Greshler was managing him. Abby Greshler was the same guy who managed Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. And anyway, he had the kid had a mega hit with this record, a big career. And then they found out instead of taking his 10% or sometimes 15%, he was taking 80%. And there was a huge lawsuit, and Abby Greshler lost. So when you think of all of the money that these stars make, it's very rarely true, but that's why nowadays things are different. You know, Goldie Hawn stopped working for other movie companies. She developed her own movie company, and she produced, directed, and starred in her own movies. It was her thing. It was her money and all. So a lot about the business. So that's two questions. You got any other ones?
Oh my gosh.
I'm having fun.
Hold on, producer. Do you have any questions? He's looking at me while I'm looking at you.
Oh my God, Jerry Lewis. Oh my God, there's tons of questions. Let me just try to think.
I got a good job for Mr. Producer.
Go ahead.
Go on the internet and look up and find out who had the hit record in the 1950s of "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus."
Yeah, look that up, Gino.
All right, give me a second.
All right. So now let's get back to. All right, let's get back to your books. Let me, and then we're going to play an MP3
Yeah, there's
song.
a song that I'm going to ask you to play after I give it the intro. Okay.
So, let's get back to your book. So you've written. This will be your second book, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So
Actually, to be real, I did write a few books for the magic market, which actually sold quite well.
Oh.
But they weren't mainstream, and it's not something that although I did write a little book, I think it was 12 pages, and I believe it's available on Amazon. and the book is called How You Can Double Talk. Double talking was an art made very, very popular by a guy named Al Kelly in the 1940s and 1950s. He did a lot of TV work, radio, and he could talk to you and you'd be embarrassed because you thought you weren't hearing him right, but he was double talking. You had no idea what he was talking about, and it was an art. And I believe it's still the only book ever written on the art of double talking, and the book is extremely inexpensive. It's about a 12-page softcover book, and if anybody wants to learn how to double talk, it's a lot of fun to do. Go on Amazon and you'll see it there.
Okay, but wait. Hold on. You can't just do that to me.
I'll sit
Give
right
us
here.
an example. You do something double talk.
Well, did you know that if you now this is serious and it's related. If you have too much deviant sex, it can actually make you helpless daytime.
Okay, so I don't know what the heck you just said. I just heard the word sex and too
Yeah,
much.
no, you're right. I said it can make you hard of hearing.
What?
Oh my God.
It says Jimmy Boyd.
Jimmy Boyd is the guy. Thank you very much. He wound up being an actor, Jimmy Boyd, but he had a very distinctive voice and quite a star.
I'm still laughing at the other thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I used to do that. I used to do that in my act. I would talk about back in the later days of my comedy routine. I used to talk about Dr. Ruth, and I would say to the audience that Dr. Ruth said something that I never believed she would say. Now, my audience at this point was mostly all senior citizens.
Okay.
And I would say Dr. Ruth said that if you have too much deviant sex, you can become helpless mind. And all of a sudden, everybody would go, huh? What? What'd you say? And I said, she said it can make you hard of hearing. Well, the place fell apart.
Forget it. That was brilliant. So now I have we're going to play that in a minute, but I want to ask you a couple magic. I love magic.
So do I.
Okay? We've
don't
had
blame.
so many magicians, local ones as well, come live in studio and give us magic shows, okay? I'm that crazy person that will watch everything. You know, you can't, I'm sitting right next to the magician. I'm watching his face, his eyes, his hands, his butt. I can see everything.
That's how he's distracting you.
How the
Because
heck?
you're looking at everything that he wants you to look at because he knows that you're looking so hard. He's smart enough to know that he is distracting you by having you look at places like this hand is sitting over here, but you're going to pay attention to that hand because it's closed. What's inside that hand? Meanwhile, he's doing something somewhere else, and he knows that.
He's
And
incredible.
that's what a good
Listen,
magician
magicians
does.
are incredible to me. I am just blown away by magic. So I have a question for you. Do you ever teach it?
Oh, I did a lot of teaching. Yes, I did a lot of teaching when I had my stores. And occasionally I will have somebody who'll call me and say, Rick, either I used to take magic lessons from you or I would like to do something. And so, yeah, I teach magic.
All
I
right.
love it.
So then I have a question for you.
Sure.
All right, you're probably not going to answer it because magicians are brats, okay? And they won't
No,
answer
sure.
my questions. All right?
Sure.
So, all right. One of the magicians that came in said, "Give me your address and I'm going to mail you something and do not open it. Bring it
Deck of
with you."
Was it a deck of cards?
No, it was a piece of paper.
Okay.
Do not open it. Bring it with you. I took the envelope out of the mailbox when it came, put it right in my glove compartment, did not touch it. Came, brought it with me. Okay. He says, keep this in front of you. I said, give me a magic marker. I got a magic marker. I put a heart on it. So I knew that was my envelope and I put it right in front of me. They couldn't do anything with that envelope. Okay.
Right. Gotcha.
So everyone and anyone who knows me knows I'm an Elvis fan, right? Elvis
Right.
is number one to me. So he says, all right, so I'm going to ask you a question. Here's a list of songs and artists. He goes, look at them all and just pick a number and don't tell me. So I go, okay, so I pick a number and it might have been Frank Sinatra, okay? Do you know what was in that frickin' envelope?
What was in that freaking envelope?
Frank Sinatra's photo.
Mm-hmm.
How? If he was going to, he would have thought I picked Elvis. is my point. Elvis was on that list. So anyone who knows me who thought they were going to trick me would have made Elvis be in that envelope.
Yeah, well, the answer to your question, if you're asking me how do you do it, I don't know because I would actually have to see everything that happened.
All right.
There is obviously something that you're not remembering, even though you'll swear up and down that you remember every single thing
No,
that
I
happened.
know, I know.
I don't know the answer. And if he was able to pull it off with you, because you are a skeptic and you are into it, then he did a very good job.
Great job.
So kudos to him. Kudos to him.
I just love magic. Do you don't still do it?
Oh, I mean, where am I going to do it? I don't advertise as a magician.
Where are you located? What state?
I'm in New Jersey.
Where?
Well, I was born in Newark, grew up in Livingston, and I've been in Cherry Hill now for more than 40 years. Matter of fact, on the 25th of May, I'm going to be doing, I hate to call it a lecture, I'm going to be doing a book talk and a program about the Jerry Lewis book and all for the South Jersey Men's Club in Cherry Hill, and it will take place at the Jewish Community Center. So, yeah, no, I've been...
Very cool. I mean, in the summer, if you want to come in and do some magic live, let me know.
Oh, well, that's very nice. I'll think about it a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a practiced magician. I was always more of a stage magician. Maybe if we ever do this again on here, I will supply you with some audio of my appearance on The Tonight Show
That would be cool.
in 1962 BC. That's before Carson. And I was on there with guess who? Jerry Lewis, who was the guest host, and I performed magic, sitting with him at that famous desk on The Tonight Show.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they're wonderful. Magic was a stepping stone. A lot of comedians started. Johnny Carson was a magician to begin with. Steve Martin worked at the magic shop at Disneyland for a period of time. He was a magician.
It's crazy.
And a lot of because magic is a great way. I wanted to be a comedian when I was 6 years old, and I talk about it in the real Jerry Lewis story. How did I become his protege and all? But I knew when I was 6, 7 years old, I wanted to be a comedian. But who's going to listen to a 7-year-old talk about their wife and kids? And so magic was a great thing to bounce off of because you could do your lines, you could do your comedy, and you can get hired when you're 12 years old, 13 years old at some nice venues, and you could be funny as a magician.
Yeah. On AGT, they've had some young comedians and magicians, and they're just amazing. Amazing. So,
Although, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Television, I've watched America's. I stopped watching America's Got Talent after maybe the third or fourth time I saw them cheating with magicians, and things that just could not happen. I know what could not happen.
Really?
Oh God, yeah.
So wait.
What's his name? One of the judges, a comedian, bald head. What's his name?
Howie Mandel?
Howie Mandel.
Tell
So,
us.
Here's what happened. We're off topic, by the way, so hang in there, folks. We'll get back on topic.
Oh, no, they want to hear this.
So Howie Mandel is one of the judges, and a magician comes on, and he does a card trick, and he has someone pick a card, and the card is supposed to show up on a big screen or whatever, and it's the wrong card. And the judges are kind of, going like that, whatever. But he's on, and he says, well, there's got to be a way out of this. Mr. Mandel, do you carry a wallet? And Howie Mandel says, yeah, I do. Do you have it with you right now? Yeah. Howie Mandel takes out his wallet. He says, Mr. Mandel, open your wallet and go inside where you keep your cash and take out what's in there. And he says, wait a minute. What is this?
Uh-huh.
It's a folded up card.
Mm-hmm.
Opens up the card, and gosh darn it, it's the card that he
Right.
picked. Amazing. Well, I watched the program. The magician never came anywhere near Howie Mandel.
Right.
It was a setup.
So then,
And
okay.
that galled me, and I said, no more. There are too many talented magicians who can do miracles without having to do a cheap setup like that. And that's how I felt.
So wait a minute. There are several of those.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Okay, and I've called all my magician friends, and all they can say to me is, I'm not sure how to answer this, Jer. Because I think they're afraid to say what you just said.
No, it's a setup. Right.
Okay, because I am not a magician, but I have common sense, and I'm like, how is that even freaking possible? Thank you. All right, now, do you want us to play the MP3 now?
Yeah, all right. Let me explain this because I do have to set it up.
Yep.
We all know Jerry Lewis, and when I say we all know, the fans of Jerry Lewis and those who are cursory fans who grew up listening to him or even now watching some of his videos and whatever, we know Jerry Lewis had two singing styles.
Okay.
He had the real squeaky, screechy voice that he screamed and yelled and sang when he was together with Dean Martin. Well, Jerry had a singing voice, but it would have been appropriate for him to be in competition with Dean because it would have been too distracting and people wouldn't buy it. People did not want to see a serious Jerry Lewis.
Right.
That would break the mold and that would be no good. So when Jerry was with Dean, he recorded songs. He recorded children's songs. He did some other things for Capitol Records with the Jerry Lewis squeaky voice. Then when he broke up with Dean Martin, he decided, actually Patty, his wife, talked him into it, to pay for a recording with an orchestra and all, and his favorite song at that time was Rockabye Your Baby with a Dixie Melody. He paid for the recording session, brought it to Decca Records, who loved it. They released it as a single, and it went up to number 3, and now it was in the top 10. Now, Jerry Lewis had just broken up with Dean Martin, and here he was with that Al Jolson, really powerful Sachem voice, belting it out, and everybody loved it. Those who loved it. And that was Jerry's other singing style. But in the middle, Jerry had a soft, beautiful singing voice that he never used, and he made one recording for it, and that's the recording that Jerry is going to be playing for you, Geri Petito. Jerry Lewis is not doing anything right now, except turning over in his grave, listening to this on his iPhone, wherever he is. You're going to hear a Jerry Lewis voice that you never heard because he never used it. It was his real, natural singing voice. What was this recording? Again, Jerry paid for this recording. He paid for the orchestra. And he made this recording as a gift to his wife, Patty, on their 6th anniversary. That would be 1951, when they were married for 6 years. You will hear, well, I'm not going to tell you what you'll hear. You'll hear it now.
Okay, let's play it.
2.5 minutes or so.
They call me a comet, they call me a clown, but even a clown can feel when I take off the grease paint and put the mask down. I return to a world that's real, and that's where an angel waits when day is through. If you've never seen an angel, I'll describe one to you. One night, 2 precious stars came falling from the skies, and they became the eyes of Patty. A sunbeam came along to shine for just a while, then turned into a smile for Patty. And to complete this work of art, out of love and faith, they made her heart. And now the job is done. I thank the Lord above for giving me my lovely Patty.
Okay.
That
Certainly
was beautiful.
Wasn't that nice?
Yes.
Beautiful rendition and a very thoughtful gift for Patty Lewis, who was, when they met, big band singer Patty Palmer. And now here's the rest of the story. Geri and Patty, despite what you might read on the internet, because there was a lot of lying going on when Geri and Patty were really married, largely because when they were really married, Patty was 6 months pregnant with Gary Lewis. But by those standards back in the 1940s, that was important. By today's standards, nobody's carrying their calculator around to see when you became pregnant. Geri made that recording for Patty in April of 1951 for their 6th anniversary. In April of 1951, Lynn Dixon, a New York model, was about to have hers and Geri Lewis's baby, Susan, who is still with us. So when Geri made the recording, he was seeing Lynn Dixon, a pretty blonde model, whom he was in a family way with. That's bad English. At the same time, at that same year, around the same time he made the recording, Geri had asked actress Mary Hatcher to marry him. It even got into the Winchell column in all of the papers, but went highly unnoticed. And the story read that Mary Hatcher says that Geri Lewis promised to marry her as soon as his divorce with Patty was final. The divorce with Patty wasn't final until 1983. That was Geri's gimmick, his line, "I'll marry you." And maybe he meant it. I don't know. Maybe he meant it. Geri was a very needy soul. And I don't know, maybe he really fell head over heels in love with all these girls and needed that feeling. But so he promised to marry Mary Hatcher. Eventually, she had a nice little movie career and then retired and spent the rest of her life as a regular person, as a civilian. As far as Patty is concerned, nobody was surprised. I unearthed this recording. It was never released to the public, so maybe the people listening here are among the first people outside of the inner circle to hear it.
Wow, thank you for that, Rick. Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. It's amazing. I have 2 more questions for you. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. One of them is, what really truly happened between Dean and Geri? The truth. Whose fault, if any? What really went on? Why did they break up?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And it is the top 3 questions when I meet somebody who I've never spoken before. They want to know what. And isn't it amazing? Martin and Lewis got together in 1946.
Oh,
And they broke up in 1956. And we're still talking about them.
wait. I have to say this. I was born in 1961. What? I grew up thinking
Well, are you surprised you were born? Oh, I don't understand your question.
I was growing up watching them thinking they were together
Oh, no.
as a little kid. All right, continue. Oh my gosh.
I was in attendance at Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis's last television show together, which happened to be the 1956 Muscular Dystrophy Telethon in New York City at Carnegie Hall. And so, yeah, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis broke up in 1956. Jerry did a single starting in 1957. He performed on his own. Now, in 1967, they were still showing Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis movies at the kiddie matinees when they used to have kiddie matinees.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So who would know? They released the films. You went to see Dean and Jerry, and there was no internet. You couldn't surf and look up and whatever. They were together. And people will ask the question, why did they break up? Well, when people would ask me that question, and it would sound like a snide answer, but it's true. The question being, what happened? Why did Martin and Lewis break up? The real question should be, how the hell did they stay together for 10 years?
I love it.
In the beginning, it was, Dean said, right, Jerry was his meal ticket. They did create a lot of noise, not exactly even the way they got together. It's all explained in The Real Jerry Lewis Story, available now on Amazon. Excuse me. It's all explained in the book, how they got together, why they got together, why they broke up. And it's a long story, and it even involves the FBI, believe it or not. But I asked Jerry when we were together in Berlin, Germany in the early 2000s, I guess maybe 2005. I said, I want to ask him a different kind of question. I said, if you and Dean stayed together, what would you have done? Because tastes in comedy had changed. Everything Martin and Lewis did in the beginning was unpredictable. Every face Jerry made was unpredictable. By the time they came down to the end of their run together in 1956, everything they were doing was totally predictable. The style of comedy had completely changed. Comedy was getting, what they say was getting smarter, but the slapstick, Abbott and Costello, Martin and Lewis stuff, that was gone. The comedy teams, as you got into the 60s, was Jerry and Ann, Stiller and Mira. On the Ed Sullivan Show, Google them, Stiller and Mira.
Yep.
Very, very clever, smart comedy. But nobody was into the man-child, making crazy noises. That was passé. That was gone. Jerry hurt himself once by going on. He was friendly with Sonny and Cher. He liked them. And he did their show a couple of times. And the hippie movement was real huge. And Jerry went on and did this silly little sketch like he was a hippie. And he wore a long wig. And he was, with all the kerchiefs and all. And he was making stupid faces. He offended the entire younger generation with that.
Okay.
Because Jerry couldn't change with the times. Some performers didn't have to change with the times. They just stopped working. So to answer the question, when I said to Jerry, what would you do? He said, no matter what, even if we loved each other, maybe we would have lasted another 3 years. He said, but we would have had to go our own ways because our style of comedy, what we were doing together, was passé.
Okay. If we loved each other. So there, you said the FBI was involved, all this craziness. So that's sad. But remember when they saw each other for the first time on stage?
No, I don't remember that because that wasn't the first time they saw each other on stage. And I knew about it before it happened. That's why I had my my Panasonic half-inch black and white reel-to-reel tape recorder recording the telethon when Dean Martin came on. I'm sorry, not when Dean Martin, when Frank Sinatra came on, because my uncle called me from California, my uncle who hadn't been with Jerry now for about 12 years. He said, Ricky, whatever you do, make sure you watch the telethon. When Frank comes on, it'll be about 3 o'clock in the morning, your time. I can't tell you what it is, but something's going to happen. I said, okay, Uncle Ernie, thank you. Uncle Ernie was Jerry's manager and producer and director, but he knew everything. Uncle Ernie was giving me a heads up. I knew it had to be something. If it's Frank, it had to be something to do with Dean. And Jerry had a rule. And the one rule that he had, it applied to me and everybody else. No surprise.
I knew you were going to say that, I swear. I almost said it with you.
I believe you. No surprise.
So it wasn't really a surprise.
No, then there's an easy way to tell. Usually by the third hour of the telethon went on the air 9 Eastern time. No, was it 9 Eastern time? Yeah, around 9 Eastern time. 6 o'clock West Coast time. Usually by 3 hours, Jerry hated his bow tie. He looked great in it, and that was his trademark, tuxedo, Martin Lewis. But Jerry would always loosen, he didn't wear a clip-on bow tie. That's for a waiter. He'd wear a tieable bow tie, and he'd pull it, and he'd open up his collar, and he would sing and whatever. But he hated the restriction. Okay, so at any time by by midnight, West Coast time, Jerry would never have his tie tied. But when Frank Sinatra was introduced, Jerry, behind his podium, supposedly not knowing anything was going to happen, his tie was perfectly tied because he knew history was going to be made. It was going to be a huge photo op, and we're still looking at those videos today.
I love your honesty. I love facts. I love knowing the truth about everything. That's my personality, and a lot of people, but it's upsetting in the same respect as well, because there's so much behind the scenes that, we're so gullible about. You know what I mean?
It's not being gullible. Being gullible, I know. The thing is, if you want to believe something, I don't think that makes you gullible.
All right.
I think it makes you...
Because that was so beautiful for us to see,
Sure it was. I have video. I have movie, which converted to video. I have movie clippings of Dean and Jerry together. You could see my uncle in the background, my Aunt Judy coming out of a car. Years after Dean and Jerry broke up, they were together at, I forget the venue, but Eddie Fisher was making an appearance. He was opening night somewhere. Dean and Jerry were there, holding each other around. Jerry had little sideburns. They had long since broken up. Dean and Jerry were in each other's company several times.
Thank you for that.
They did not perform professionally.
Okay.
But,
thank you.
Towards the end of the real Jerry Lewis storybook, I do this kind of a list. When Jerry was singing, he was acting.
Okay.
When Jerry was clowning, he was acting. When Jerry was pleading for donations, he was acting. Everything performers do, if you see them, then the camera's on them. They're acting. And when Jerry and Dean got together, they knew that this was going to be one of the 10 biggest moments in television.
Yes, historic.
And they gave the audience what they wanted.
Okay. Now, my final question for you. All right. Well, part 1 and 2. When is your second book going to be out?
I would love to give you a definitive answer. I can't.
About?
My guess, it'll be probably around Labor Day.
All right. You get in touch with me because I'd love to do another interview about that book. But here's my question. Can you tell us one incredible thing that's in that book to make everybody like, wow, I can't wait for this book?
Well, hold on while I press my cough button.
Okay.
I'm back. I don't know what would be truly. I mean, there's a new fact that has come out, and I'll announce it here.
Okay.
There's going to be also within a few months. Well, the audio version we're just finishing up now, and I do have an actor doing the audio. Unlike your book, where it's actually you, I have an actor.
Actor.
Of the book or the reading of the book, but also the book itself. Hey, it disappeared. Here, the book itself is going to come out with an updated version around Labor Day also. And it's going to be The Real Jerry Lewis Story, Volume 2, A Closer Look. And in it, I will have a full chapter about Jerry's youngest son, who took his life at the age of 45 years old, sadly. But he did a lot of writing, and his family have given me the writing to publish. It's amazing stuff.
Oh man,
so that's interesting.
that is.
But I will tell you that the story for years, and I just told this to Gary Lewis 2 days ago, and he's floored by the news. Patty Lewis was a big band singer. When she met Jerry, she was singing with the Ted Fiorito Orchestra, and then went on to the Jimmy Dorsey Orchestra. She was pregnant she was pregnant until she had a baby, but the pregnancy lasted through their dating, and finally when they were married, when Jerry and Patty were married, Patty was 6 months pregnant. But Patty supposedly gave up her career when she started the show. But that was during World War II. And you had all the soldiers that used to come in to see the big bands, and they used to love to look at the girl singer and fall in love. Well, it's kind of breaks the spell when the girl singer you're looking at is 6 months pregnant. So she retired. And the story has been that Patty gave up her career to have a child who turned out to be Gary Lewis, and then never returned.
Okay.
But I have unearthed some wonderful publicity. I'm going to be showing it in the book. I'm going to be discussing it. Patty actually did not retire from singing. She started performing in nightclubs again in 1946. And when Gary was over a year old, she was performing. And one night at this club in New Jersey that she was singing at, this fledgling comedy team came in and made a special sort of a little one-night guest appearance, and that was, as advertised, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. And they weren't even legally a team yet. So the little news for those who are interested in that stuff, Patty Lewis did not, her name was Patty Palmer professionally, she did not retire to raise a family. She was raising her family, and she was still singing and performing at least into 1946 and probably into 1947. Why was she doing that? 2 reasons. Bread and butter.
Right.
Martin and Lewis were spending more than they made.
Okay.
And they weren't making that much.
Okay.
So that's a whole other conversation.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you again for honoring me. And listen, Gary Lewis, if you're going to listen, I want to interview you. This guy's not making it happen. Tell him to make it happen, okay? I've interviewed a lot of legends. I need you on that list, baby. But all kidding aside, Rick, you're awesome. Your books are amazing. I mean, your knowledge is off the freaking charts, okay? So I want to thank you once again for honoring me on my show here and in Hamilton Radio. My producer, what would you like to say?
Well, I'm a 60s guy too, but the slapstick that they did, that Martin Lewis did, was, in a lot of comedy team books and stuff like that, which I thought they were together for years.
Right.
I would have never thought they were not together.
Right.
And the other thing is, I thought people loved that. I mean, that one-on-one, the way he did his face, the way he did his voices really made him. That's what I think. Maybe I'm out of line.
No, he's saying they were very popular, but as the years went on, people.
I always
No,
I
but
always
wait,
thought he
but
was
wait,
popular.
wait, hold that thought, because I could answer that, and then I want him to
Yeah,
say
sure,
what
go
he
ahead.
thinks about what
This
I'm
is
saying.
my opinion. Go ahead.
This is what I got from what you were saying and what I'm thinking. So they were super popular, but then they started fading with what people wanted. Other things were coming in, but then they came back. To us, we thought they were still going on, and to this day, people love it. So it's not like to this day people don't love them, right?
Oh no, people love it.
Yeah.
What? Well, I reminded Jerry. Well, I didn't have to remind him, but we had a conversation about it, and I said, no matter who you are, whether you're Jerry Lewis, whether you're Gary Lewis, whether you're Dean, whoever you are, you always have to pay very close attention to your original fans, because when everybody else is, gone and left you, your original fans are the ones that are going to carry you through. Gary Lewis and the Playboys still do 20 concerts a year, and they pack the house. And who's there? Their original fans and some newer fans, curiosity, people
Yeah.
that love rock and roll music, so the younger people. But for the most part, look at the audience. It's the younger fans who know the lyrics to every one of the songs, and they sing along with it. You have to pay attention to your original fans, because otherwise it'll be over for you before you know it. And that's really it's a sad truth, but it's the truth. And now with the media the way it is, with so many different ways to listen to music and watch television, even I don't know, do they even call it television anymore?
I don't know.
We're not on television. We're on a video podcast.
Right.
Everything is different, and they used to say that freedom of the press was only for people who had one. Now everybody has one. We want to publish a letter, we write a letter, we put it in a text, we put it on a website, and 4 million people are reading it.
You're right.
It's a different world.
You're right.
But you have to pay attention to your original fans, because they're the ones that are going to support you forever.
Right. Well, thank you. You know what, Rick? You're amazing. I just love our interviews. I'm going to be talking about this like I talked about the first one for a long time. Keep me posted when your other book comes out. I want to redo this. What would you like to say to your fans listening?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know why nobody bought the book Albert Einstein: The Dumb Years. That's my big problem. No, listen, it's an honor for me to be on this. This is a very popular program.
Thank
and
you.
I love doing it. I love nowadays being able to go to work and only wear a shirt. But that's my business. That's not your business. But seriously, it's great fun for me to do these. I enjoy it. I also enjoy talking about my book, The Real Joe. Oh, it's right in back, and I don't have to lift up the book. It's over there. And I hope to have more books that people will enjoy and will get something out of, instead of just reading. It's not the real Jerry Lewis story is not all salacious stuff. There's a lot of things in there that are just unexpected when we talk about the telethons and how the Muscular Dystrophy Association had to give 10% of their donations to a theatrical union. Otherwise, they couldn't have stars coming on for free. It's fascinating stuff, and it's in the book.
All right. Thank you
ran out of
so
things to
much.
say.
Oh, my gosh. Doc J, would you like to say thank you?
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Thank you
You're
for
very
being
welcome.
here, too.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me, and we'll do it again anytime you like.
Yes.
I'll be available.
You better
I'll
let
be
me know ASAP about that book, please,
I will,
when
I
it comes
promise.
out. And talk to Gary for me, baby. Come on.
You're sounding like Mo Shames now. Calling
Listen,
me baby.
listen. When you were saying about him, I was going to
Yeah.
say to you, that's my word. Okay, that is my word. He was Jewish. I'm Italian. I had a lot of Jewish friends, and
Well, yeah, but you see, there's when you see a Jewish man moving his hands like that, you know he's talking. And when you see an Italian man moving his hands like that, he's talking. And when you see an Italian man with his hands in his pockets, then you know he's talking to himself.
Oh my God. But that's my word, baby, man. I call everybody
Okay,
baby,
baby.
okay? Frankie Avalon, listen, I called him baby, okay? Listen,
That's right, baby.
that's just what happens. So, all
That
right.
is good.
This was amazing. Let me know, baby. All right,
Okay.
producer, take us out.
We'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.